Here is a wonderful hand that deals with pot odds, and if you are someone who loves the idea of pot odds or chip expected value, chip EV, you are about to learn something very, very good. So you can see what we're looking at now. Let me back it up and show you how we got there. Folds around, we make a steal, which is great. We will call the 6 big blind reshove right here. That's easy, but then we kind of get this, I believe it's a 16 big blind reshove. Now, at face value, most of us just hit the fold button simply because we have king 8. Like, okay, that's cool, and that's as simple as that is definitely the best play by far. So whether you fold here or not, the biggest thing here is, what about pot odds? What about chip EV? And if you're someone who loves those concepts, or you've always wanted to know more about how they function, this is going to be very, very important to you. It can be tempting if we're trying to play good math. It can be tempting to call here. Let me explain why. Now, your exact odds here are 1.4 to 1, and I know that just it's off to the side of the video in the replayer. But there's something really, really important about 1.5 to 1. So here you need 41% equity to call. I'm just going to call it 40. I'm going to round it off. 1.5 to 1. If that makes sense, 1.5 to 1, you need to be a 40% favorite. And the 1.5 comes from 60 and 40. And 60 in comparison to 40 is 1.5 times larger than 40. So if you took 40 times it by 1.5, you get 60. So that's where the 1.5 to 1 comes from, if you're ever curious about that. But basically, that is a magic number. And I might have said this before. Some other times I've definitely taught this to people in some coachings. But the idea of 40% is kind of a very magical number, because in human language, what that means is your calling range can match this person's reshoving range. In any situation where you're playing chip EV and you are 40%, 1.5 to 1, your range can match the other person's range, and then you can do all sorts of things with that. So what that means is, well, if you are 37%, or 38, 37, 36, you can be a little bit wider than that person's range. If you're 42, 43, 44, 45, you can be a little bit tighter than their range. So 40% is kind of this magic little numerical entity where you can dance around it. So does that make sense? So now you can see how pot odds actually function. Everything begins at this 40% mark, and then if you go above 40%, your range has to get tighter. Or if you need to be less than a 40% favorite, you can make your range looser. And so it's your range in comparison to his range. So I always compared it to, I live in California and you live wherever you live, and somewhere there is a perfect straight line in between us. So if you walk down that line, and if I walk down that line, eventually we meet in the middle. And that, in pot odds language, is the 40% mark. So that's why, yikes, does that mean you can actually call this here? So the real question is, does this person shove king 8? Well, if you're playing against a crazy loose shover, yeah, guess what? A crazy loose shover might shove king 8 here. So that means if you listen to odds, you have to call if you are being perfect and listening to pot odds and chip EV. But then realistically, I don't want to call king 8. That's a bad hand. And so that's what's really, I think, great about this hand, is sometimes the simplest thing of just, man, I have a really bad hand, is more important than all that sophisticated chip EV stuff. But either way you look at it, the biggest thing you want to take out of this video that you can use in every poker game for the next 10, 20 years, your life, forever. 40% in chip EV, when there's no weird bubble and all that kind of stuff, just means you can match your opponent's range. That is a lot easier than pulling out a calculator while you play and going, oh my god, what's it? Oh, I don't know. And all those crazy things. So all you have to do is ask yourself, does this person shove king 8? No. But what if we had ace 10 here? Does he shove ace 10? Yeah, probably. But don't always listen to that exactly. You probably always want to have a couple better hands just in case. So maybe a good calling range here would be something like 8's and ace jack, 7's and ace 10 at the widest. But more importantly than the range, you know how this spot functions, and that should help you for a very, very long time to come. Okay, so go load some games, test this out. You will see that 40% thing appear all the time. A little piece of advice: If you are someone who is playing where there's not chip EV for whatever that moment is, so if you're someone who loves the EV stuff, add 6% to that value. So 40 becomes 46. Why? I did a bunch of math before. Don't worry about it. It's really complicated. 40 in chip EV is 46 in ICM. Okay, so you can use this as you play. Okay, yeah, this is some powerful stuff. You will see it a lot as you play. Okay, and a little disclaimer before we finish this off. When you are using pot odds in game, don't take them so literally. It doesn't mean just because you're 40%, you always have to call if your hand is in your opponent's range. Just remember that this is how it functions and not necessarily like you have to make every plus EV call, okay? Because when you are making plus EV calls, yes, they're good, but you don't have to hit every single one. So even if this was plus EV, there are a lot of times where I would just easily say, no thank you, I don't want to get involved, and just move on, okay? Hope it helps.